Cool. Okay, so we're gonna get things kicked off. Again, you know, we couldn't do these webinars without you folks attending. Definitely appreciate your time, and we're hoping that you learn a ton today. You know, about engineering hardware, SolidWorks hardware. You know, why it's important. Kind of some stories that we've run into over the times. You know, dealing with IT purchasing machines and maybe not exactly knowing what the hardware specs should be, right? So, so this is good just for engineers, for SolidWorks users, for anyone in the IT world, right? Purchasing computers for their departments and whatnot. Got a ton to learn, and you know, we hope you come up with at least one or two ahas along the way. So yeah, we'll get things kicked off. So this is really exciting, and this is something new for GoEngineer, and I think just new globally for SolidWorks resellers. Is that we've actually teamed up with, partnered up rather, with Dell and Nvidia on workstation solutions for various types of users, various types of SolidWorks users, right? And this is something that it's really the tip of the spear, because there's no other reseller that does this. And GoEngineer, being as big as we are, right, decided that it was about time. That we've had a lot of these conversations with our customers, and we've also experienced, you know, those kind of negative externalities that come with purchasing hardware when someone doesn't purchase the right piece of hardware, right? So, so yeah, this is introducing our partnership with Go and Nvidia and Dell, and really how we can help you make the right decisions along the way. So I'll go ahead and kick this off. So I'm Adam Hughes. I've been working for GoEngineer for a long time. Definitely a huge SolidWorks advocate, and I'm also an adjunct professor at USC. Keeps me sharp, you know, teaching folks. So definitely enjoy that. We also have Mike and Chris. Mike's from Nvidia. He's the Nvidia expertise on the call. Mike, why don't you go and introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little about what you do.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Adam. Great to meet everybody here. I'm Mike Geyer. I'm with Nvidia, based in Portland, Oregon. My background is mechanical engineering. Spent a long time working with customers in the CAD space, doing implementations and training, and have worked in a number of roles at competitors to SolidWorks, and been with Nvidia here about 8 months. And I just really think it's important to share as much as we can to get you guys the power you need. There's nothing more important to the productivity of an engineering company than the engineers running SolidWorks all day. And if you don't have the right tools, you're not at your optimal. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having us, Adam.
Absolutely. And Chris is our Dell representative.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Chris Ramirez. I'm a mechanical engineer as well. I have gone over to the dark side of more evangelism, but it's with good intent. So I'm the engineering industry strategist, and so that means I have input into our R&D team to make sure that the precision workstations we're building now and on the roadmap for the next 5 years are built around the use cases that you, the engineers, are going to be performing, also aligned with our ISV partners like Dassault and SolidWorks. And we chose a couple of headshots of Adam and I hiking different hikes. Mike apparently hikes in a 3-piece suit. That's his casual hiking attire. But
hiking around conference halls. Yep.
Yes. So we do get out of the office on occasion, or at least we did 6 months ago. So I'm going to pass it back to Adam, but I'll be speaking a little bit later. And thank you for having us on your webinar, Adam.
Hey Frank, I got your webinar chat. Hopefully that volume's a little bit better for you. Cool. So let's talk about hardware a little bit, right? You know, generally speaking, SolidWorks definitely has a minimum spec, right? And it looks something like this. Like, you have to have Windows 10 64-bit. Some of the questions along the way when you're like building or speccing out a computer is like, well, what processor do I get and why? And why am I spending an extra $1,400? Or do I need to go to this faster one? Or is this one good, right? You know, we're gonna talk through some of these. a typical hard drive, like a mechanical hard drive versus SSDs. Like SSDs are a lot more affordable now than they've ever been. So we should probably just be steering towards SSDs. HDDs are good for mass storage, but for running applications, SSDs are the way to go. And then GPUs, like generally speaking, there's two classifications of GPUs out there on the market. There's gaming GPUs, and then there's workstation GPUs, right? And there's a really big difference between the two. One's good at showing a lot of information really fast. And then the other one is really good at showing a lot of information with extreme high quality, right? And so gaming cards are essentially, high speed, low drag, the quality's just, it is what it is. But then the workstation cards have drivers written for specific applications like SolidWorks, amongst many others. But then also their specificity is more in that quality level, right? So we'll expand more on those too. RAM's always an interesting topic. It seems like everyone will just throw as much RAM as they can in their computer, right? And
I think you need to get closer to your mic, I think is what I'm hearing.
I think I just turned up my gain. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. And so yeah, a lot of the times what we want to do is like throw as much RAM as we can in our computer. And it's like, well, is it the right type of RAM? Is it the right speed of RAM? Does it pair well with the applications that I have? These are all the questions that we're thinking about when we're speccing on a computer. It's like, I want to make sure that my money is going as far as it can when I purchase a system or when I spec out a system. So, and then obviously monitors and screens too, right? 1080p is going to be your choice for SolidWorks, as 4K has limited support. And then some extras I like to throw in there just a little bit too. Just get a good mouse. Good laser mouse is they're inexpensive, something with good DPI ratios. And thanks for the audio check. And your 3D mouse is really nice if you're using, if you find yourself like with your right hand working too much, right? And that's just because we're using our right hand to do like center mouse, left mouse, and then center mouse button, and then rotate, pan, and all this jazz. If you get a 3D mouse, it's really nice. It's a really nice addition to the engineering table, right? Just so that you can use your left hand to rotate and pan as opposed to using your right hand. So that's kind of.
Everybody has one of those these days, right? Is that the should?
I definitely preach it. It's like the best $75 you'll ever spend. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
On a 3D mouse. And then of course, dual monitors, if you don't have one, that's just a convenience thing. So besides the extras, right? The hardware theme is the main thing that we're going with, right? These are all the what ifs and the question marks that we might have when we're going through and speccing out a system. And Dell and Nvidia have bundled these computers together, these configurations together to make it super easy for us, like one button clicks. Like we've even layered it out depending on which different types of systems we have too. So this is the agenda for today, right? We've kind of gone through our introduction. We're going to go through what the Dell and GoEngineer partnership means to you all and how that's going to look, and the way you can navigate that. Then we'll have Chris jump into configurations and talk about all the different workstation setups that we have and kind of what they're good for. And then lastly, the kind of GoEngineer perk. And I'm not gonna lead to it just yet.
My thunder, don't steal it.
I know, I'm not going to. But it's really nice, and it just kind of goes to show that Dell and Nvidia are really here to help and make sure you guys are getting the best bang for the buck. Cool. So that's our goal for today. Let's trek on. So, a lot of the times we're faced with, how do we design a better product, or we're pushed in that direction, right? Designing a better product, either making it lighter, faster, cheaper, stronger, et cetera. Iterating designs through simulation, through software to make them the most efficient version of whatever you're trying to go for, right? Some of those times too, we might jump into photorealistic rendering, right? Through like Visualize, which is heavy on the GPU side. And you really just want to wow your customers, right? And that's the idea. It's like, you could design a part, you put all this effort into it up in the front, you put all the simulation and iteration up into the part and or the design or whatever it is, and you make it the best version that it can be. And then now what you have to do is go pitch that to your customers. And the best way to do that is with SolidWorks Visualize. And specifically with like GPU rendering, right? To make it look the most realistic and most convincing version of what it is. In fact, a lot of our customers actually, start selling their product before it's actually even made, like pre-orders, for instance, because they have a render that looks so good. It's so convincing that people know that they want to buy that thing.
And I'm pretty sure I watched an entire video that GM released yesterday about the new electric Hummer truck that they're releasing, and all the birdseed is simulated video of actual vehicles. So it's to the point now where certainly being able to take photorealistic images and put that into your advertising is something that is great to get that initial demand. They apparently sold out in an hour of their first year's products. What are you thinking about about that, Mike? Since you've been in everyone's shoes here before.
Yeah, we've actually got several examples we've heard over the last few months where the ability to do photorealistic rendering and put out marketing collateral before the product's actually shipping has saved some companies' ability to hit their ship dates. So not needing to rely on supply in order to start marketing is huge for both getting the product to market on time, but then keeping the company rolling. So, the more you can do to front load that marketing collateral on the CAD model itself, better. Give the production guys time to get those final validation tests right.
That's right.
Yeah, and like the key thing to all of this is having good hardware, right? To iterate, to simulate, to make your realistic images through Visualize, right? All of these things happen faster, more accurately, less crashes, so on, if you have the right hardware, right? So this is the key driver, right? It's just like, hey, let's make sure we all have a baseline about what that really is, and then decide if you need more, depending on what tools you use in SolidWorks. So, Chris, am I turning this over to you?
Yeah. So really the question that Adam posed, right, which is how do we engineer better? How do we engineer faster? We realize that every single one of you is in a competitive field, and so it's not just about you doing your job faster. It's you doing your job faster, better than your competition, so that your company can grow. And the way that you solve for that, whether it's the kind of evolutionary or the revolutionary changes in the workflow, I would say being able to do photorealistic, video images of your design beforehand is probably more on the revolutionary scale. Evolutionary scale is the GPU pipeline for rendering inside of SolidWorks has just gotten faster, and it's gotten better because of the coordination between Nvidia and Dassault when it comes to actually coding up that rendering pipeline. So the answer here is to put together that cohesive solution. And so this is really where Adam, myself, and Mike came together in our companies and said, all right, let's try to take the guesswork out of selecting a system for GoEngineer from trusted people like the three of us, and really talk through and have that explained, be able to explain that to you, the customer. I know that as an engineer, I also fancy myself an IT expert, but not all engineers are IT experts. And so we're going to go ahead and try to take some of that guesswork away from you. So what we're introducing is the GoEngineer Dell Expert Network. And so this is a venture between Dell, Nvidia, and GoEngineer, where we've actually partnered together. And I'll actually go to the next slide. So this is the offer. This is what we're doing, and this is going to be a long-term relationship. So this is something that these are webinars we hope to have quarterly, if not more often. All right. This first webinar we're having to spend really talking about just the program itself, but in the future, I could see us spending a lot of time on how to tune your system with Visualize, or perhaps we dive deep into simulation or e-drawings in VR. If you're going down that route. But so what we've done, optimize solutions for your roles within SolidWorks. So if you're utilizing SolidWorks Standard and you're staying basically in CAD, and you've got your parts and assemblies are, of course they're important, but maybe there are only 250 parts or so versus someone with 5,000 parts in an assembly, right? We're going to help walk you through what's the right way to do that. The neat thing for you, the GoEngineer customer, is going to be, we're going to give you 5% off our best pricing on Dell.com exclusively for you. And I'll show you how to obtain that coupon. And on top of that, then you'll actually get 3% rewards back on future Dell purchases. At the end of your purchase of the system, you'll see a credit in your Dell account for future systems. We have a dedicated Dell account rep. So Alicia is on our team, and I'll show you her contact information. And Alicia is actually going to be on a one-on-one name basis with the GoEngineer salespeople if there are questions and they need to transfer to say, hey, help me figure out the hardware that I need. The quarterly webinars, like I spoke about, we really want to have these happen and provide technical tips. And so, Adam, you had some ideas of some things that we were thinking about. Maybe we want to ask our attendees, what kind of topics they would like, add that to the Q&A, and we can cover that a little bit later, but what kind of topics they'd like to see us cover. And then finally, Dell has a financial services arm, Dell Financial Services, where we can bundle hardware, software, services, training, all to meet your needs. So if you need to move something from OpEx to CapEx, depending on how you purchase it or lease it, these are things that we're bringing to the table just to give you, the customer, additional options to purchase. So my one marketing slide, and I promise this will be it. So we are the #1 workstation brand in the world, and the reason is we pay attention to our customers, and to our customers means you from an engineering perspective, and we have kind of 3 core tenets when it comes to workstations, and so those are mission critical reliability, the performance oriented, and then the actual front of screen experience. And so I have been at Dell for a total of 20 years, but back in 1997 I was an engineering BSME junior, sophomore back then. I can remember using workstations, the Dell workstations, and these things were super powerful. Windows NT, compared to what I was used to. But what we saw is, by 2001, I was actually part of Dell, and we saw that engineers wanted to be mobile. So now back then, most ISV software was CPU bound, so we took a desktop CPU, put it into a big case in order to cool it, hoped it was under 50 pounds, called it a mobile, and sent you on your way. And I think I still have the bruises on my shoulder for carrying some of these systems around 20 years ago. Thankfully, what's happened is a couple of things have converged. Number one, the dawn of the GPU, right? The graphics processing unit has continued to get more and more powerful and smaller. So it means it actually requires less power. So less power, more powerful, and the ISVs like SOLIDWORKS have adopted GPU acceleration into their software engineering flow. So all that leads to some pretty incredible solutions where we've got workstations, particularly in the mobile category, that are as powerful as the towers were 4 years ago. And I want to give Mike a chance to kind of speak about some of the advances that NVIDIA's made just over the last decade.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Chris. There's a lot we could say about the advancements NVIDIA's made. I think the biggest thing to touch on is just the adoption of GPU and the prevalence of GPU, and moving from single-threaded processes on CPUs and moving more of the work over to GPUs. And I think the big thing to highlight is just what SOLIDWORKS has done to optimize the OpenGL rendering pipeline. They made this an option in 2019, and it's on by default in 2020. So what that means is you get to have a lot smoother experience with bigger assemblies and complex models. And as somebody who spent their early career working with companies doing very, very large assemblies, I can tell you this is huge. And anybody that spends their time just waiting for a model to rotate can appreciate that as well. But I think that's the biggest thing, and just really want to share our appreciation with the likes of Dell and GoEngineer and the SOLIDWORKS team for helping to push to make that happen. And would encourage each of you to push your SOLIDWORKS software contacts to add more GPU acceleration wherever you can.
I'll chime in there real quick just to add some tangibility between what we're kind of talking about. And that's, you know, in SolidWorks pre 2018, right? Your rotate, your pan, your zoom in and zoom out, those were all CPU functions. And since then have been now shifted over to the GPU side. So if you want to test this yourself, it's really easy to do. Actually, you just launch your command manager and then click on your GPU monitor. It'll kind of show you the graphs. I've even done some videos on this. And you can rotate your model. You can rotate one of your most complex models, let's say, and then see how it pegs the GPU, right, as you're rotating. So it's kind of fun. So yeah, you can look out for that. And if you're using 2019 SolidWorks 2019 or SolidWorks 2020, you're taking advantage of that GPU acceleration on the rotate, pan, zoom.
Absolutely.
Pretty cool about it.
And the last thing I'll point out here, just, in 2018, we actually certified our first workstation for AI workloads. And you may think, man, I wasn't doing a lot with AI. There wasn't a lot of generative design on my radar back in 2018. And I want to say that's by design, right? It's the job of myself and Mike and the GoEngineer along with SolidWorks to predict where the engineering workflow is going to be. So if you're able to actually get a system, and eventually you'll see generative design enter into your workflows, and it'll be great to know that your system was already built for it. So that's just, it's our job to kind of predict the future and make sure your systems are ready for that. So with that, these are the three core tenets. The enterprise, so the intelligent performance, right? So this is just to what makes a workstation different from a PC is our focus on these three critical areas. Anybody can really build a fast computer that would be fast in SolidWorks for about 10 minutes. And then it would go into heat soak, and the CPU would throttle, and the GPU would throttle, and the memory would throttle, or perhaps your disk cache is too small, or it's a spinning platter, and it starts slowing it down. It's like your system deploys a boat anchor. So one of the things that we absolutely need to have is that mission critical reliability. That is, that this kind of effort is going to take you the same, whether you do it in the morning, or you're doing that workload overnight, or doing that workload, in the afternoon, that you're going to have that same kind of predictability and reliability. And that ECC memory really falls in here too. And I know Adam talks a bit about wants to talk a bit about ECC. Talk a bit about ECC, Adam.
Oh, now? Okay, cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so okay. So long story short, right? When you open up a file in SolidWorks, right, it loads it from wherever it was saved, like disk, like your hard drive or SSD, and then loads it to RAM, right? And so the faster, obviously that process gets faster if it was stored on an SSD to begin with, because an SSD can write much faster to RAM. So that's one aspect of, I guess, hardware that's interesting. And then the other aspect is SolidWorks reads the file straight off of RAM, right? So if there's like a RAM leak, or if your speeds don't match, or it's like lower quality RAM, or if it's not ECC RAM, which we'll get to in a second, there could be problems. That's when you can get crashes and all these weird things that happen, right? So generally speaking, there's two types of RAM on the market, right? We won't go into like the different types of RAM, like DDR2, 3, 4, and et cetera. But there's either non-ECC RAM or ECC RAM. And ECC stands for error correcting code. And what it does is it goes back and looks at the values that were originally stored, and then checks it for the values that are currently stored, right? And this ensures that whatever file was loaded to RAM is the file that is still there, which is also the file that you're working on in SolidWorks, right? So if you have SolidWorks files open up for an extended period of time, and you work on those files for an extended period of time, and maybe even don't restart your computer once a week, right? And those files will still open. You want to make sure that whatever's been loaded to RAM is the thing that is supposed to be there, right? And so ECC RAM is definitely one of those huge perks that you can take advantage of, and it's marginally more expensive, but it also requires a Xeon processor. So, or last I checked, it was like you had to have a Xeon to run ECC. So yeah, ECC is definitely it's a huge improvement, right? If you can add that to your workstation, I would say, if it was me, I would do it. I'd check that box.
And that, you probably haven't even read the chat window, but Aaron was asking a question about, Xeon processors, and we're going to certainly talk about cores, but Adam just hit on one of the advantages of Xeon with DCC memory availability that's one reason why you would consider going with that. The third core tenet of immersive productivity, here's where the GPU shines, right? So a lot of us are aware that eDrawings now has a pretty nice and easy VR mode, right? That takes a ton of GPU power. We've talked a bit about the visualize component, right? The SOLIDWORKS visualize, again, supporting kind of this emerging ecosystem. Absolutely have to have top-notch GPU acceleration in order to go into this. And so one of the things I'd like to do in the future, is really even have our friends at HTC join us for a webinar, and discuss kind of different headsets with GPUs, with your workstations and those kind of things, and get Adam's, take on, hey, I know what that is. Adam, tell people what that is.
Oh, well, that's just a controller for an HTC, but I have this so I can show eDrawings VR, right? So
Excellent.
you can load up one of your master, like a huge assembly. Like I have a telescope assembly that I load up all the time. It's a telescope that sits on top of a mountain, not like the telescope that sits in your living room. And you can like navigate it and walk around.
They call those observatories.
Yeah, they're observatories. Technically, the SolidWorks file is telescopes. So that's why I have that in my head. But anyhow. But yeah, my Quadro RTX 5000 just rips with VR and SolidWorks. So I try to show it off whenever I can.
That's
excellent.
Awesome. I'm curious. Anybody in the audience, if you've tried the VR and eDrawings, maybe just drop a note in the chat or raise your hand or something. Just kind of curious who's messed around with it.
I have.
We got one.
Well, two. Adam.
Yeah. Well, three. Myself. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So one thing I'll move over again. One of the things that Adam asked me to kind of focus on is the difference between a traditional PC, and a workstation, right? And that mission critical reliability. The amount of work that we do before SOLIDWORKS 2021's ever released, right? Dell has had it with Nvidia, and we've been working with the engineers who are coding it up to make sure that, right, the software is going to work properly, that any bugs or errors that are there get worked out before you ever see them. And there's a ton of work that goes in to that, at Dassault and at SolidWorks, corporate campus, where they have our hardware and they're working with us, and the Nvidia guys are developing drivers that make sure that they're going to work. And this is something that goes into the certification. So when you go to, DellPrecisionWorkstations.com, and you look up certifications, you can see which platforms have been certified with which GPUs for SolidWorks. And so just really wanted to call that out. So while we partner with many, industry leading ISVs, we put, a lot of effort into all of our partnerships. Dassault and SolidWorks is the most important to me because it's the one that most of our users are actually using. And so I just wanted to talk about, the tested and certified. So if you go to precisionworkstations.com, you can actually look at the certification list ad nauseum. But is there anything about certifications you wanted to address, Mike?
I wanted to circle back on the thing about VR and just update everybody. Yeah. NVIDIA has worked closely with SolidWorks to enable GPU acceleration for the eDrawings Pro VR. So that's going to accelerate your VR experience with large assemblies in that regard. And then on certifications, I think that the big thing here is just the reliability, right? We talk to a lot of companies that just, or even individuals that just have a policy of they don't run on gaming cards, right? They won't allow gaming cards in the door. It's not to say there's anything wrong with gaming cards, but what you're doing is very different, and the reliability and the support and the certification to make sure that these things work together. As somebody who worked on a competing product in the early days and spent months and years dealing with crashes due to wrong drivers and and graphics stuff, I can only tell you the frustration on people's faces when they lose data because of something as silly as a graphics driver. So
yeah, that's a really common thing, and that's again, that's one of the things that we can tackle here too, and that we're going to tackle. In fact, it's part of the plan. It's just like sometimes drivers are a pain, but the fact that Nvidia has certified drivers for SolidWorks, you can't go wrong. You go find your computer, find your GPU that you have, go to SolidWorks, get that certified driver, load it on your machine, fixes all your problems.
And when Dell releases a new precision workstation, that system's already been certified, right? So you're not being a guinea pig. That system with those drivers has already gone through a pretty extensive certification. So let's get into the GoEngineer configs. So I earlier hinted at the fact that we've created custom configs for different types of use cases, and I show you this not for you to read it, but to understand that we have upwards of 15 different platforms, right? Where ranging from 2 gigabytes of VRAM up to 96 gigabytes of VRAM. You're looking at storage. You can get a 256 gigabyte spinning drive all the way up to 136 terabytes of storage in some of our big systems. So not all engineers are IT experts, and the point here is we want to help you choose. Make that easy button. So I'm going to toss it back to Adam. We did want to make a little Rosetta Stone for basic, intermediate, advanced, to give you an idea of when we're talking about these configurations of what that means, whether you just do CAD or whether you are also doing visualize or simulation. So Adam, back to you.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult to narrow down one system just for one user, right? But we did our best job at just globalizing this and saying well, this is a pretty good footprint for everyone to follow. And then if you want to do upgrades later, or you want to talk to someone about your specific needs or your specific scenario, certainly GoEngineer can help with that. And when you're ready to make a purchase too, we also have the Dell purchasing manager, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, Dell.com/GoEngineer. That's going to be I'll walk you through a purchase process here in a few minutes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. So we have kind of like 3 tiers. We have the basic, intermediate, and advanced. And in theory, there's actually 4 because basic, before basic, there's the minimum requirements from SolidWorks, right? And so we kind of just skipped that and went right to a basic system, which is what GoEngineer recommends, just to make sure that for a little bit more, you're getting a lot more power, and you're going to be able to grow into that system. So that's why we started off. So basic isn't so basic, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yep. So we have our basic. We just generalized 1 to 500 parts, and then maybe dabbling in a little bit here and there on the simulation side, but not really part of your work requirement, right? And then you can jump up to the intermediate category there, 500 to 2,500 parts in an assembly. Obviously, that depends on your graphics triangles. There's a lot of what ifs in there, right? There could be some special scenarios, or maybe you're doing a lot of weldments, right? So that increases your graphics triangles just naturally. Maybe you should step it up a little bit more, maybe make a couple upgrades. And then you can run to your advanced kind of bucket, much larger assemblies, definitely looking at doing animations and visualize rather than just still photos. And then maybe you're running a ton of simulation, which would then also bump you up on how many CPU cores you need, which is, it's one of the questions here, and we'll get to answering those specifically. But yeah, if you can kind of visualize, no pun intended, right? How this might escalate depending on the products that you're using, and then the types of parts and assemblies that you're loading up frequently. So yeah, this is our Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone, yes.
Matrix. Yeah, that's Chris's doing. Right.
Thank
My
you.
verbiage
Thank you.
Chris is doing. So good work on that.
I'm a fan of the Rosetta Stone. I use that quite often. So yes, we've created these custom configs on Dell.com. They're easy to get to, Dell.com/GoEngineer. There are 6 configs. And so these 6 configs, it's 1 mobile and 1 tower for each of these types of users. And so the first system we put together for kind of the basic or SolidWorks configurations is, right, we know there's price sensitivity. So that's the point is I wanted to have a minimum config that we knew would hit a certain bar of performance. I didn't want to gold plate it if you didn't need it. And that's where Adam comes in to help say, you know, here's where I might do some upgrades to these base configs, but we know these base configs are going to have a certain amount of performance that meets our collective bar of how a system should work inside of SOLIDWORKS. So the needs here, 2D, 3D CAD, right? You need enough VRAM in the GPU to allow for large models. So I think 3 is the minimum inside of SOLIDWORKS. Right? You're not going to get that on a integrated non-discrete graphics that's part of your processor. You need to have a discrete graphics card. And so, you know, the Nvidia Quadro P1000 and P620, they're both 4 gig GPUs, and that will get you over that hump. And that's one of the biggest things to make sure that we get over. And then to one of the questions Aaron asked, right, the CPU performance and usage inside of SOLIDWORKS when you're doing CAD, it's primarily single-threaded. So that means you want as fast a frequency, turbo frequency of the CPU as you can get. You don't really care about the number of cores, nor do you care about the base frequency, because the base frequency would apply to all the cores when you're using that. So you'll see a base core frequency at 2.6 with a turbo mode at 4. In the parlance of SOLIDWORKS, that's really going to be kind of pegging out at 4 gigahertz. And really, that's a very predictable scale of the faster the CPU is in single-threaded, the faster your CAD work's going to be. And so we've recommended the 3640 tower in this config, as well as the 3551. And I'll show you a bit about those. These are the base level configs that you can upgrade. Adam?
Yeah, just a little extra here, right? We spec'd out the GPUs with 4 gigs, and they're like, these are excellent GPUs for SOLIDWORKS. But what it also allows you to do is to slowly grow into visualize if you wanted, right? And so although these computers wouldn't be the ones that you would go out and buy right out if you were saying using Visualize Pro, but maybe you every once in a while you want to leverage Visualize Standard. With the 4 gigs, you can utilize the NVIDIA AI denoiser inside of Visualize. And so that was kind of like a hump. If you had 3 or less, or if you had less than 3 or at 3, I think there's a limit in Visualize, and it turns that feature off because you don't have enough VRAM. So what this is kind of showing you all is that we've not only looked at the immediate need on the SOLIDWORKS side, but then also said, you know, our customers are going to grow a little bit, and maybe they're going to try some different things like Visualize. You know, these GPUs are going to be a good foot in the door to see if that's something you really want, and then maybe you can upgrade later, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in both cases, we've selected NVMe, which is an SSD storage. What's the word I'm looking for? Standard, right? That is very, very fast. So, you know, I wouldn't. There's not a system where I'd recommend having spinning platters as your primary drive whenever you're doing workstation work. Your time is too valuable. So these were the first 2. The next 2 configs, we say, okay, well, if you're in that intermediate, you're getting into Visualize, here are some systems configurations that we think will meet, again, what I consider to be the minimum bar, well above the minimum bar of SOLIDWORKS. But minimum bar for me personally, if I was an engineer trying to outfit you and you were doing some work, this is what I'd feel comfortable recommending. And you'll notice the tower, it's the same tower, it's a 3640, but what we've done is increase the RAM from 16 to 32 gigs and increase the GPU to an RTX 4000 with 8 gigs of RAM. And this is really where Visualize starts to fly. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about the RTX, what the Quadro RTX allows for inside of Visualize?
Ooh, and iRay, maybe.
Oh, go ahead, Adam. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying, and iRay maybe, and how that kind of works together with CUDA cores.
Yeah, so iRay is a rendering engine for those of you that don't know, and SOLIDWORKS Visualize takes advantage of GPU acceleration. And anybody that's not familiar, RTX is technology we came out with a little while ago that's ray tracing. And so inside SOLIDWORKS Visualize, running the RTX card, you're able to take advantage of ray tracing to get better fidelity, higher resolution, more photoreal results, and do it a heck of a lot faster than previously. I think we touched on it earlier, but the AI denoising, so inferring what that final image is going to look like through AI to speed the result quicker. I've used this on a laptop with the RTX 4000, and I can tell you it's just amazing what you're able to do in a CAD system on a laptop to produce images that really look like photos. It's incredible.
Yeah, generally speaking, AI will do what you will create a render. What would have taken like the full time in 50% of the time, if not less. So if it's like a still render, we're looking at like 10% of the time it would have taken for you to achieve that look. You're only doing it at 10%. And then if it's like an animation, we're cutting that down a lot too. And for my personal testing, I've seen 10% on short animations and sometimes 50%, depending on how complex things are kind of moving. So it's a huge time saver, right?
Huge time saver. It results in more iterations, and we all know that ultimately results in better products and better renders.
Yep. And what you'll also see here is that we've selected the Xeon processors for both of them to allow for ECC memory, right? So Adam's talked up ECC memory, and when you start getting into this, I certainly think it's a worthy recommendation to go down the ECC memory route.
Essentially server grade, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then we have a question. I
yeah.
was hoping maybe you can answer this. Ken asks us, is dual channel memory used in precision workstations? Meaning, should we divide the memory between two sticks? Question mark.
So yes, and if there are even some systems that are dual CPU that we're not really going to get into today, that I would say go and make sure you have 4 sticks, right? Because you're essentially quad channel if we've got multiple CPUs. But absolutely, that's why you'll see that I'm referencing 2 sticks when you could do just 1. The other piece here is I'm leaving you room to grow. Right, so both of these systems have 4 DIMM slots. So if you start off with 2 DIMMs to get yourself to 32, you could upgrade both of these very easily to 64 or higher because you've got those extra DIMM slots available. The other piece I wanted to bring up here is this 5750 mobile workstation. So any of you getting kind of gray in the beard like I am, screen real estate's at a premium. I like a 17-inch mobile whenever I'm doing work. And this is our first thin and light mobile workstation. So in the past, those mobile workstations, if you wanted RTX performance, you had to get the big guys, really, really thick, where they're wonderful, powerful, but they don't look great next to, say, an Apple Pro, right? While this system is a gorgeous looking system, thin and light, and it has an RTX 3000 in it, the 5750. And so this has the power and the beauty of having this. We've sold a lot of these. I know they're not engineers on our side, but we've sold a lot of these to architects, right? So architects have that visual aspect where they want people to see what they're using. It's kind of sexy for a computer, I got to admit, and it's as powerful as our towers were 4 years ago. So I'll put that out there. It has dual Thunderbolt channels, so you can get a full 40 gigabits per second of transfer from both the left channel and the right channel. So you could get up to 80 gigabits per second of Thunderbolt connectivity if you've got some external, whether you're using maybe an external GPU or external storage. And this is the only workstation system that you'll find on the planet today that has 2 complete Thunderbolt channels to allow for that. So I'll put that out there. Any other kind of comments or questions, Adam?
Just that we stepped into Xeons on this one, and that Xeons just have higher calculations per second than i7s or i9s, right? Like,
correct.
They can process more information faster, even though they might have lower clock speeds. So if you're just comparing an i9 to like a Xeon, and you're looking at clock speed, that's not exactly an equivalent comparison, right? Because the architecture on the back end is different between a Xeon and an i9. So the bonus is that when you jump up to a Xeon, not only are you getting ECC RAM, but then also if you're solving things like simulations, which I think this for a simulation system, this would also be a good system, right? And certainly the next tier steps it up, right? That's like the ultimate simulation system. But even with these guys, you're going to see your calculation times decrease, right? Both on structural simulation, flow simulation, and plastics, right? And I'll save this to the end until we talk about all three of them, but we'll dial in on what SOLIDWORKS uses on the core side of things, and then what simulation uses on the core side of things. And each one of them is different because they have different solvers, right? And what applications use GPU versus what applications use CPU, and so on and so forth. So we'll sum it up with that after we get through these configurations.
Okay, that's right. And the last two configs are kind of top dog if you're deep into visualize and deep into simulation, and you've got 5,000 parts in your assembly, and you want this thing, and frankly, you want to get your job done so you can get home to your kid's soccer game. Right? That's important to all of us, right? Be able to get our work done. These are kind of the top shelf, and so we've moved into an RTX 5000 class GPU on both of these. So you've got a 17-inch mobile workstation. So if work at home, workspace is a critical component. You only have a small desk at your house if you're having to work there. So mobiles, I could highly recommend that. And so you need a fast CPU and single core because of all of the CAD work you're doing in your large assemblies, but you also need more cores for simulation. And so you'll see here that you get up to 14 cores inside of some of these systems, and not to steal any of Adam's thunder, but you do reach a point if you after you put a certain number of cores towards a product, you reach a point of diminishing returns. You could get up to 26 cores in the 5820, but you're paying an awful lot for an incremental performance over, say, a 14 core or a 16 core CPU. Adam, do you want to kind of chime in on that? Or did I just completely steal the thunder? Yep. You're talking about cores and simulation.
Yeah, so Windows is limited to 64 cores per group, and then SOLIDWORKS isn't group aware, so you can never use more than 64 cores, I guess. So, but yeah, there's these huge diminishing returns when you get past 32. So, although we have simulation software that can, in theory, use as many CPUs as you can throw at it, which is the plastic simulation tool. We find that 32 or something, in the high 20s or something like that is, if you're doing tons of plastic simulation, then plastic injection molding simulation with SOLIDWORKS plastics, then yeah, you can justify moving up that high. Yeah, I'll leave it for there for now, and then we'll just circle back on all the CPU talk.
And with regards to the RTX 5000 and having 16 gigs of VRAM, what does that enable, Mike?
Sorry, Chris, you caught me unaware. I was just looking at the time, making sure that we had enough.
Oh, sorry. I was just mentioning. So we've stepped up in all cases. We've stepped up RAM. We've stepped up storage as a base level. I said just the last thing I wanted to ask you was, stepping up to a 16 gigabyte VRAM inside of an RTX 5. What does that allow me to do?
Render more complex scenes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, so more complex parts, bigger assemblies, more stuff on screen.
Load larger complex parts
Textures,
as well.
Yep.
All right.
So more graphics, triangles, more polygons that make your images look more realistic. That would also be one of them.
All right. So I'm going to go to do the quick walkthrough, and we're going to dell.com/GoEngineer, and it resolves to a slightly longer URL, but all you have to remember is dell.com/GoEngineer. First thing you'll see here is an exclusive coupon. So you need to hit the coupon, and you're going to be asked for your email address. And so this is just for GoEngineer customers. So we ask you to keep this to your GoEngineer family, utilizing SOLIDWORKS. You end up receiving an email with a coupon code. Let me bring that up. And so then when you actually go in here and you're shopping, here's where we had those configs, the configs that we just talked about. Here are the first two that we talked about as good for kind of that entry level, way above the minimum config for SolidWorks. You know, and the different options that we have. Then the kind of recommended for visualize, and then the last two are recommended for simulation. That doesn't mean that if you're using simulation that you know, you can't go down to this level. It doesn't mean if you're just using CAD that you don't need to have one of these systems. But we do try to divide it up, you know, that way. And so the email that you'll end up getting, apologies, I had ended up closing down this email. Where is it? There we are.
And then each one of these systems is upgradable, not downgradable, but you can upgrade them too. So if you kind of see yourself fitting in the $3,000 range, right?
Yep.
But you wanted to make a little enhancement, you could just go through and modify the configuration. So yeah, I'll take that 64 gigs of RAM now.
Yep. So this is the coupon you get, and you see this coupon code. This coupon code, it'll be unique to you. So single use for you and your email address. So you know, guard it and use it for yourself. And to that point about doing upgrades, you know, if we jump in here to the, we'll say 3640, to Adam's point, right? We allow for upgrades. We wanted to make sure we maintained a minimum level of performance, and so we didn't want downgrades available. So you know, the base config here is a 6-core up to 4.8 gigahertz. So that turbo speed, what matters for your CAD, right? But if you're doing more simulation, you do care about the base clock speed, because that's the clock speed at which all the cores can run at one time. And you'll see that there are other options. You could go up to 10 cores. You could go up to, you know, 5.2 gigahertz from or 5.3 gigahertz from a turbo speed, or you could have up to 3.8 gigahertz as a base speed. So you have that option to upgrade. The memory configurations, we asked about double channel, dual channel, quad channel, right? So here's the ability where if we start off with 2x16, but you decided, no, you know what, I need 128 gigs. I know that based upon my assemblies. We have that option there. We have the RTX 4000 as the baseline config. You can see that you can go up to an RTX 5000. In that case, though, then you need a slightly different fan. This bit absolutely will walk you through. And then the drives. What I haven't hit on is multiple drives. RAID 0 is super fast, but it offers you no redundancy. RAID 1, offers you some redundancy. Adam, do you ever have a RAID recommendation for your customers?
I don't. I usually leave that up to the IT crew.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. And then, so here's you selecting the drive. So all this to say is that you can add it to your cart, configure it however you want to do your upgrades, and then you're asked for your coupon code at the cart level. And I'm just going to fly through that part. Right there it is, where I can actually check out and apply my cart. So there's the coupon code right there.
So how do we know if a PC has quad channel memory?
Some of the specifications inside of Dell.com, and what I'll do is I'll actually put a link to our specifications inside of the Dell.com/GoEngineer. I'll see if I can't get an update to the site just to link out to that information.
Okay.
Cool. And Chris, just so we see the whole process, do you want to go ahead and put your credit card number in there?
Yes, I do. I'm like the guy from LifeLock, going to put my social security number and then be surprised when I get hacked. So
we have a couple questions.
Yeah, let's do questions. That was all I wanted to show.
Perfect. Yeah, this is great, and it's super easy to remember because it's just Dell.com/GoEngineer, right?
Yes, sir.